All right, all right, all right. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amona, and I pray everybody is doing well. We're going to go ahead and get into part 2 here of Evolution of a Revolutionary. This is chapter 2. And if I stick with it, then we'll get all the way to the end of the book. There's some interesting parts that I wanted to get to, and this is a discussion, so I will not just be doing the whole audiobook vibration. I will be having a discussion as I read, right? So for those who are just looking for a straight audiobook, yeah, no, that's not what's going on. So with that said, welcome to those who just joined us. If you missed part 1, you can be sure to hop on over there. I'm probably going to have to make a playlist. But with that said, let me go ahead and make sure everything's a go. And then I'll go ahead and jump into it. One second. Oh, see, I was about to forget something. Just like that. All right, all right, all right. I'll put on a little background vibration here. All right. All right, here we go. Now, I haven't seen any recent videos, so I suppose he's all out of he's all out of videos, but nonetheless, we're still gonna get this information. So, chapter 2. Up the Road. That's the name of chapter 2. So let's just recap. Chapter 1, she gave us the backstory on her upbringing, where she came from in North Carolina, the relationship that her father had, or she had with her father, how her father related to her family, her propensity to block out the uncomfortable truths. Even though you acknowledge them, you can acknowledge something but not necessarily accept it, right? Somebody can acknowledge the truth, but they don't necessarily accept it. It happens every day. You know, somebody could acknowledge cigarettes are not good for them, but don't accept it to the degree where it's going to change their behavior, right? So when I say acknowledge but not accept, that's kind of what I mean. You can acknowledge that eating, bacon grease in the morning may not be the best thing for you, but you don't accept it to the degree that it's actually going to change in your life. So with that said, this is how she set up the situation. She had a great grandfather who was a European, but because he come from a mean family and as she classified poor white trash, then she refused to accept that she had a European great grandfather. She would rather say that he was a Lumbee Indian, right? So again, it's the setup to this whole conversation that surrounds Billy Garland. But let's continue. There were too many people. Oh, wait, where am I here? I'm reading a quote. There were too many people full of hate and bitterness crowded in a dirty, stinky, uncared for closet section of a great city. And that's a quote. So let's continue. Oopsie. I never know if I reflect the New York gray or if it reflects me. And by the way, this is the way it's written is conversational.
Yes, likes to be. She is quiet and tired.
Pause.
She sucks on her.
Who told you to talk?
She is quiet and tired.
Whoa.
She sucks on her. 2 up the road. There were too many people full of hate and bitterness.
Pause,
crowded
everybody.
Into a dirty, stinky, uncared.
Yeah, the weird lady just stopped.
What?
She's writing again.
Stinky,
hold on. Let me see. Yeah, I don't know what that was. It threw me off. So let me go back to the chapter. I had to get away from crazy lady who just started reading. Let me see here. We'll have to put a time marker. All right, here we go. All right, this is chapter 2, Up the Road. I never know if I reflect the New York gray or if it reflects me. If it's gray today, misty, and I'm blue from all the gray, Afeni sits in the corner of the corner where she always likes to be. She is quiet and tired. She sucks on her Newport till it's all gone and drifts away in the smoke. Afeni and I can be quiet together, even though it has been a year since I've seen her. We just pick up from our last visit in Stone Mountain. And today we are in my New York apartment being quiet together. But this is no ordinary day. I'm packing up 20 years of my New York life in labeled boxes and hefty garbage bags. Afeni is here to sit with me while I pour over the last 2 decades of my gypsy life. Old Alvin Ailey playbills, signed cast photos, love letters, fan mail, my first 8x10. Afeni and I have talked over the past, but I haven't seen her face. Looking at her now, without the tall Georgia pines and sweet grass surrounding her, she looks more like she did when I first met her in the halls of 100 Center Street. She is a little sad, contemplative. So we sit across the room from each other. I look out the window at a swatch of blue on the ashen street. A flattened Tampax box remains on the sidewalk after someone had ravaged the plastic garbage bags in search of recyclables. I hate it when people go through my garbage, I say. I hate seeing my stuff all over this blinking street. Last night, I gave that man $5 so he wouldn't go through my garbage. I told him nothing was in there. I even watched him walk away. I thought we had a deal. He must have come back in the wee hours and ripped open my bags. Or maybe someone else did. I'm just over New York. New York used to be my refuge. I came here for peace, energy, for some realness. But now it's just depressing. I mean, and this was many years ago. And New York is, interesting. It says here, I want to make a joke, but I can't think of one. I also want Afeni to think about something else, something other than what is making her eyes glisten in the dim, lamplight. I want to bring her joy or fun, but I can't. I'm pissed. I'm pissed because I can't make her laugh right now. I'm pissed because my Tampax box is flattened on the sidewalk in front of my apartment for all the world to see. I use the same tampons my mother gave me 25 years ago, I tell Afeni. I like some things the same way they were first made, even though they make a million different kinds now, a million kinds of everything, shampoo, toothpaste, soap, but some things are just fine the way they've always been. Johnson's baby powder, well, not according to the litigation, but okay. Vaseline, petroleum byproduct. Q-tips, oh man, I don't know about that. That pushes the wax. Let me stop. Tussie, Afeni interjects. Oh my God, Tussie, she says. My girlfriend used Tussie in the 7th grade. That was the first time I ever saw cream deodorant. Never heard of Tussie, but okay. That's right, works just fine, Afeni adds. Man, Tussie, Jergens lotion. Yo, what kind of conversation? I remember Afeni nods as she remembers too. My babysitter's daughter, Valerie, used Jergens lotion in a glass bottle. She was a teenager. I love that smell. How about bergamot? Thick blue rubbing your scalp bergamot. Dax. And they be still selling that Dax grease too. Dixie Peach, Afeni offers. My granddaddy laying them waves down with some Dixie Peach. Finally, we laugh, Afeni and me, as the scent of my grandmother comes to me. Cashmere bouquet. My Nana always smells so good, soft. Pond's cold cream, Dove soap. Oh, y'all naming some toxic type stuff because, knowing what we know in this day and age, that's not the best stuff to be putting on your skin. But we're going to continue, especially Dove. Anywho. We didn't have all those fancy creams growing up, Afeni says. I just slapped some grease on my legs, rub it in real good, and be on my way. Hair grease, I assume? No, baby, lard. She was putting pig grease on her. Fat from the can on the stove kept me from getting ashy. Wow. Afeni starts a new Newport, but that stuff was thick. And by the time I got to school, walked in dust, played in the dirt, my legs got all dark and sticky from the grease and the mud. Those kids laughed at my legs, all streaked with black stripes. They called me Sambo and Tar Baby. And well, bacon grease. Wow. Yeah, I know. No, that was me saying it, not the book. Yeah, I know. I say a girl called Belinda Wilkie was dang near tortured at my middle school. She was long, bony, and dark. They ripped her apart every day. One day they threw her books on the ground, stomped on them, and then snatched the hairpiece right off her head. They called her Baldy and Willoughby. So children are reckless, bro. I wanted to kick their behind so bad, but I was too little and they were waiting for me. So I said nothing. Although I wanted to be a hero. I wonder where Belinda is now. Probably in therapy, based on what you said, is now. And did she ever get over the abuse? No, Belinda is in therapy. Okay. I say in memory of my old school days, she got over it, Afeni says, or she's working through it, just like all of us. We're all works in progress. And that part is true. Maybe she moved away. Maybe she came to New York like I did, the land of opportunity. Well, if she did, she says, God bless her, Afeni sighs. When did you come here, I asked. I was 11, sixth grade, but it wasn't exactly here. Afeni surveys my tree-lined street from her perch across from the window. No, it wasn't no Upper West Side brownstone. It was the South Bronx. Lots of concrete. Not quite what me and Glow had in mind. What did you have in mind? You have to understand the whole milk and honey concept we had of growing up north. Well, we called it up the road. When my mom went up the road, she stayed with her cousin Wilhelmina. That's interesting. That's my grandmother's middle name. And she also came to the land of quote unquote milk and honey, looking for opportunity, but it wasn't from the South. It was all the way from the Caribbean. And every time people come here, they say the same story. It's not what people told them, right? We didn't know the job in the factory making lampshades didn't pay nothing. Or didn't pay. She said something else. We didn't know our so-called house was a one-room apartment for all three of us. She tried to warn us that up the road wasn't quite what we were led to believe it was, but how could we imagine something we had never seen? I wanted some trees, some dirt, some rain, some sky. All I got was gray and soot. I was a tomboy with nowhere to run. I got here the summer of 79, I say, hot, stinking summer. I got off the train at Penn Station and took a subway to 42nd Street. Oh, my God. Urine and vomit. Oh, gosh, man. Steamy pork hot dogs, syrupy soda, dog doo-doo, underarms, dirty feet, morning breath. I almost threw up a few times on the subway going to dance class. All those strange people on top of me, next to me, and around me all the time. Yeah, that subway is something else. I learned how to cocoon myself on the train, though. Make myself invisible. I learned to space out just enough to leave reality of the subway car and still be aware enough to watch my wallet. Sorry. You learned how to disengage, Afeni says. I had a New York face and it worked, still does. I was determined no one would mess with me, and worst of all, no one would know I wasn't from there. Pure survival. It was the first year of integration at my junior high school. I walked through this park to get to the school across the way, Afeni continues. You walked alone, I asked her, in New York? Yeah, well, my sister went to the high school, so yes, I walked alone. You know, this is 1958. So she comes to New York. They're coming to the same place 20 years apart. One comes in 79, one comes in 68. So they're coming to the same place 20 years apart and, having similar experiences with New York City, right? Jasmine, this is 1958, Jasmine. Kids walk to school, Afeni shrugs. I was walking to school and it was 1988 and kids were still walking to school. Is that when kids picked on you with the Sambo Tar Baby stuff in the park? Because the way she's doing this story, it's not like she's just drilling her continually to get the information. She has to kind of engage and allow the stories to naturally emerge. That's the way she's going at it. And so this is the way in which the stories are coming out. And sometimes it'd be like that, right? So she says, I envision skinny Afeni up against a pack of preteen wolves. Byron Cohen said I look like something from out of space, Afeni says. His name, like she know him today if he bumped into her on the street. What did you do? And listen, you may think at the time that we are in elementary, people be like, oh, it was so long ago. The imprint that things have on our mind. It's like I say it all the time, like wet cement. The imprint, you can recall people's first, last, and middle names, where they sat in class. Usually when it's in elementary school, kindergarten sometimes, and early junior high school, because we're still forming intellectually, mentally, emotionally at that time. And things people say have a deeper imprint than oftentimes they do later on in life. And so when she says she said it like she can remember him today, it's kind of like that. The other day, it happens to me often, as a matter of fact, where I'll be walking somewhere. I've been in New York, I've been in Florida, and people will just call out my name. It happened to me last week. And I was like, huh? And the person is like, don't you remember me? And I'm like, y'all, my face, it's like your face has not changed. The weirdest one is when I first went back to New York after about 10, 15 years. And I went to do some type of acting audition thing. And somebody was like, Faith. That's my given name. Yamuna is Faith. So, and I'm looking like, how in the world do you remember? You remember me from 1980, long time ago. So yeah, these things stick in the mind, especially if it sticks out for good or for bad. So let me see. What did you do? I wondered. I kicked his behind. Afeni exclaimed, surprised. I had to ask. You could fight? I asked, thinking of how much easier my life would have been if I had just kicked Velveeta Brooks. Yo, why the lady was, first of all, her name was Velveeta. I mean, bad jokes. Her behind in the 4th grade instead of her kicking mine. And they're not saying behind, but, oh yes, Afeni says, all I wanted to do was fight back. By the time I was in the 9th grade, I was pretty bad. I was giving my mama hell. I thought fighting was the way to compensate for my inadequacies. So she's reflective in this moment. The mother is struggling. She leaves the abusive father only to bring the issue with her. And sometimes when you're trying to get away from something, you don't realize that it now has embedded itself in the part of the people that you're trying to save. Before I learned how to fight, boys were always messing with me. See, I was new, dark skin, short hair, and no titties, she says. What was cute about that? And what is the only thing little boys think about that age? Shoot, being cute and titties. How she know what they think about? She said like she knew for sure that that's what they was thinking about. Okay. I saw myself in a different light. Boys made me feel ugly and weak. So I'd go right to the source and beat the boys behind. I had to have something else to offer besides being cute, other tools. I had a mind. I had a sharp tongue, and I could fight. I could fight right through my fear. If a pack of MFs attacked me, I'd pick the biggest and the strongest MF and fight for my life. That's why I always fought boys right off the bat, because if I could kick a boy's behind, you know I could whip a girl's behind. In fact, I didn't fight a girl till the 8th grade. So she had come up with a whole game plan of how to survive out here in these streets. It's just go around fighting people. What in the world? She was very large and very bad, and I was very scared and very small and alone. But I whipped her behind because I was scared. Wasn't nobody in that cold, hard city but me and my mama and my sister. I thought I had to be prepared to stand up for my mother, my sister, and myself. So sometimes when there's a gap, when there's a missing piece in a family unit, then someone, male or female, tends to try to fill that role. And so now she feels that she now has to become the protector. She already thinks her mother is soft. Her older sister is doing whatever she's doing. And so now she sees herself as the protector of the unit, right? Which is also interesting. Like the man of the household. And she goes on to actually say it, that she steps into this role and usually when you step into this role, you take on a certain energy, which for the reasons that you've stepped into the role can and do become problematic, right? Because you're looking at Afeni as herself, but also at this time she's Alice, and also as the mother of, do you see these traits in Tupac, which would have been her son? And if they were problematic in the mother, how were they problematic in the son, right? It says, that's right, Afeni said. No uncles, no brothers, no cousins, no daddy, just us in the Bronx, country, naive, and wide open. I had to stand up for us, and that's what I did. I got respect in the streets by going around and just randomly beating up people. Very, very interesting. For those who just joined us, welcome to the conversation. What's going on, Queen T? We're on chapter 2 here. So she's randomly beating up people in the streets. I wish I had done that, I reflect ruefully. No, you don't. Look at me. My anger destroyed me. You don't wish that, Afeni shakes her head. And that's what anger does. It eats away at the person who holds it, right? It's a fire, so it's all consuming. Afeni, I said, half the 6th grade wanted to beat me up. I was 9. They were 11, 12, and 13. They waited for me on the corner. They came to my house. My teacher, Miss Lewis, had to drive me and my sister home from school because she was so scared. It's important to be able to protect yourself, especially if you're always picked on for whatever reason and you're small. Please tell me, how did you kick that girl's butt, Afeni? Biting, scratching? Let me relive this moment with you and pretend it was me. I can't with Jasmine Guy. It's funny. No scratching. It was a New York City school, so we had to line up in the morning and at lunchtime downstairs in the gym with huge concrete beams, and I slammed that bee's head up against the beam. What was the reason that you were fighting her again? I must have missed that part. She says, I lost it. Afeni's palms this invisible head in her hand and bashes it into an imaginary beam. Okay, reliving the moment much. But what I really got in trouble for was kicking the assistant principal. She tried to intervene, but I didn't know who the lady was. She could have been one of the girls' crew, for all I knew. The girl was big, and she had a clique. I knew if it went down, I was going to be stomped. I wasn't having that. After all, I am my father's daughter, Afeni explains. Again, in chapter 1, she talks all about how she's not, the father is not good. The father is blah, blah, blah. But again, when somebody comes from an abusive household, there's 2 ways that you can go oftentimes, right? A, you're going to identify with the victim. Therefore, you're going to be the poor me, and you're going to embody a victim mentality. Or B, you're going to identify with the strong one, quote unquote, which is the aggressor, which is the person who's violating everyone. And then you find some type of twisted pride by identifying with the person. So you see, when she's telling the story about having to step into the man's role and to defend her and all of her family, and then even though she doesn't like her father and she resents him, she finds pride in identifying herself with the abuser, which is the father. So she says, after all, I am my father's daughter. Okay. He was a fighter too. I dust my grandmother's old crystal candy dish and wrap it carefully in newspaper. People don't have candy dishes no more. I remember my grandmother used to have candy dish, boy, with the little mints in there and the little strawberry thing in there and the nasty butterscotch. I ain't like that one. But it says he was fighting. He was a fighting man. Yes, he was a small man, but unafraid. And he was stubborn and arrogant. That's what Tupac and I got from my daddy. The rebellion and the need to fight back and be recognized for being different. So the daddy is small and stubborn and arrogant, okay? Keep that in mind, because now she's going to be attracted to somebody who's small, stubborn, and a bit arrogant in a minute. It says, we got that from my dad. Out of my mother, Glow, and me, I was most like him. Again, to me, it feels like she's deriving some source of pride from being like the abuser. What? It happens though, because when you're in that type of dynamic, your mind is not right. All you're thinking of, this person is weak, this person is strong. So I'm going to take after this person who's strong, even if it means being on the offense and attacking people. It says here, in fact, he said, I was most like him, but that didn't mean nothing to me. In fact, it was an insult. It doesn't sound like it to me. It doesn't sound like it was. It sounds like you have mixed feelings, just to me. But let's go. Being the favorite of someone you have no respect for is not a compliment. But you just said you had to get respect by being the aggressor. So you, to a certain degree, you may not respect him, but you do respect him because you have incorporated his methods in order to gain this respect, which is fear. Right. So to a certain degree, you did respect how he wasn't no punk. So kind of to people who were smaller than him, right? But anyway, from my point of view, he was always gone. I was angry with him, more angry than any of the other two women in the house were. I resented him. But wait, from your point of view, he was always gone, but when he was there, he was abusive. So this is, again, the child's mind. Like, if he was there more, he would only just be more abusive. So the fact that he was gone most of the time is a bit of a saving grace, because things possibly could have been worse had he been in the house on a continuum. So Jasmine Guy asks, did he scare you? Me? I wasn't scared of him for me. I was scared of him for I was scared for my very sad mother. And sometimes it's because the person, the parent could be, it depends on who the parent is abusing. So by her saying she wasn't scared for herself, to me indicates the parent wasn't directly abusing her, like beating her, hitting her. He was abusing the mother, and they were the witness to this abuse. And it does make a difference in how the child relates to the parent who's the abuser. It says, when I used to come home from school, 1st and 2nd grade, I would look under the bed to make sure he hadn't killed my mother and stuffed her body under there. That's crazy, but real thought, to be like, oh, you wonder what the person did when you were gone, right? I can't see myself right now doing it. She says, I can see myself right now doing it. That was a real possibility to me, very real. When it was all clear under the bed, I would be relieved and go on with my day. That's fear, that's anxiety, that's uncertainty. 1st and 2nd grade, your whole life of your lifeline of your mother, your nurturer, your provider, all of that is confused and discombobulated because there is no peace in the home, right? Well, see, that's what happens in a kid's mind when you have someone doing things secretly and it's not talked about openly. My mother was hiding everything. She was a good Pentecostal, highly religious woman. She tried to hide from her children that the bastard was hitting her. She couldn't hide it, though, and I just grew to hate him more because I'm seeing my mother, who wouldn't hurt a thing, not even a fly. So she later on says and prides herself on telling her children the truth and not hiding anything, no matter how bad it is. And this, you can see that mindset is growing out of the experience and the resentment that she had for her mother, who did hide things. But to a certain degree, as we read on, she didn't fully disclose everything, because if she did, then Tupac would have known who his father was. So, she didn't fully disclose everything, but the things that she felt that, she's basically, sometimes children want to do it better. I think my parent messed up here, and here. So this is what I'm going to do alternatively so that I don't be like you. You know what I mean? And that grammatically, I don't be like you. Yeah, forgive the grammar on that one. So anywho, so yes, I was my dad's favorite, but it meant nothing to me. I was probably his favorite because I wasn't exactly respectful to him. I was a little fresh to him. It's hard to hate your parents, I say. It's hard to live with that kind of hatred because they're a part of you. So in turn, hating them is hating yourself. And that's a fact, right? I know all that hating hurts. As a girl child, I just hurt. Everything around me seemed hurtful. And like I said, we had no protection. I never felt safe. Now, I see that I got a lot from my mother. I have learned to appreciate her strengths, her quiet dignity. For most of my life, I have been angry. I thought my mama was weak and my daddy was a dog. No, well, the opposite of weak is not dog. The opposite of weak is strong. So this is why, like, if we talk about opposites, the opposite of weak is strong. So if the mother was weak, then you thought the father was strong, but in the wrong areas, right? That anger fed me for many years. Afeni, and if he violates your mother like this, and you are rude and you're fresh, but he doesn't redirect you, then how much, besides him being a terrible partner, how much of a parent was he in the way in which he redirected you, right? It's interesting to know what he was arguing with the mother about. I mean, my guess is finances, among other things, with the $2 and the $3. But yeah, that's interesting. Anywho, Afeni stands and walks to the built-in shelves on the other side of the room. She eyes a clear acrylic box I haven't packed yet. The box protects a pair of shiny pink toe shoes, an honor I won years ago for teaching dance to kids. In fact, years after we left my dad, when I was on bail for my own trial, the Panther 21 trial, news came to me and glowed that the woman my dad had been staying with for the last 10 or 15 years stabbed him every which way but loose, and he was dying. So what the mother, people think people get away with stuff. What the mother wouldn't do, she didn't want that kind of blood on her hands. When they left, he looked like he took up some next person, because she said 10 or 15 years. And she left when she was, what, 11, right? The person who he took up, he must have been abusing as well. And this person wasn't her mama, okay? It says, my dad's sister, Sharon, who me and Glow always loved, called and asked if my sister, who was a mother and a wife herself, could come and stay with him. My Aunt Sharon couldn't take care of him, and Glow had just had another baby. So I said, not to worry, I would take care of Mr. Williams. This is important to keep in mind, because we saw the distance. If somebody offended her, she distanced herself from them so that she can kind of insulate herself and be able to manage. Okay, so Mr. Williams is her father, but she's not calling him dad or father. She's calling him Mr. Williams. And that's just what I called him the whole time. I took care of him too, Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams, you hungry? You need to go to the bathroom, Mr. Williams? Good night, Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams, see you tomorrow, Mr. Williams. She says that she's a mean bee, but he understood. Afeni can be a bee. This is what Jasmine is saying. I've seen her lash out at others, even though she's never lashed out at me. I try to imagine how far she could go with her own father, with her own son, or with her own daughter. I respect her anger, but I wonder how a man deals with it, or if a man ever did deal with it. I need some music. Terrence Trent, the R&B's first album. Afeni slides to the door with her ashtray and her water glass. Boy, she stayed drinking, smoking and drinking water. She drinking water and minding her business with a Newport. It says, I paid dearly for being a bee, she tells me. I confused anger with strength and ran everybody off. At least that's what Pac used to tell me. So, very interesting. And that's self-realization that anger is not strength. Some people think, the other day somebody asked, well, why do people get angry? I said, angry is more of a socially accepted emotion. More so, it's a socially accepted emotion for males, not so much so for females. So and for males, anger oftentimes translates as strength, and sadness translates as weakness. But anger and sadness are one in the same, in the sense of it comes from hurt, right? But one goes outwards and it's with fire, and sadness is more water oriented. If we're talking about elements, right? So her son was even aware that, hey, your behavior, your unhealed trauma is problematic, and it's causing the fallout. But that separation that she would call the father Mr. Williams, this is the second time she does it, and she has a problem in the space of males. She did it with her great-grandfather, who we don't even know his name, except that he's white, poor, white trash. She did it with her father, calling him Mr. Williams. So it was easy for her to, I can't say, I could only assume that she felt okay with erasing Billy Garland and leaving that void for Tupac, so that she and he could both have this type of void collectively. But that was wrong. Everybody, that was wrong. That was wrong right there. That was wrong. Let's continue. Afeni imitates Tupac. My mother is being so manly. He used to tell people that stuff, and I dealt with that until the very end. I still deal with it after this time. All I want was protection. That's all every woman wants, to feel secure, to be able to go through life knowing that a man in the street ain't going to beat you up. Having a man to watch my back, I needed that. And all my life, I had to be the man. This sounded a little bit like The Color Purple. All my life, I had to fight. But a lot of melanated women have this feeling because of the destroyed social structure, because of the destroyed family unit, because of the man's position, where he is in society, and his frustration and his anger. He turns around and he puts that and projects it, not all, but in this situation, and many like it, he projects it onto the woman. And therefore, not only does the woman not feel protected, the children don't feel protected, especially if it's a young girl. So she's saying that this is not now. Her grandfather beguiled her for the lemon. I'm going to have to sneeze. for the watermelon, right? So I coming up in a space where a lot of men are masculine energies around you, but you don't feel that protection, because with protection, there has to be a little, you can't just be like, yeah, I'm here to protect you. It has to be a level of nourishment with the protection. So you're knowing that the people care, right? And I understand growing up around a lot of males, how Afeni may have felt in this situation, right? She said, then what happens is I get in trouble for being the man. That's the catch-22. Well, you can't be the man. You feel me? I mean, in your mind, you might want to take a role like of being all aggressive, but you can't like be the man because you're a woman. You know what I mean? So anyway, she is bitter now, misunderstood and lonely. I see why she doesn't like to go back there. Back to the Panthers, back to past relationships, back to old friends, back to her husband. I tried to change the subject. Nah, man, you shouldn't change the subject. You should stay on the subject. That's why we're here. You can't be changing. Like, I'm sorry. I was watching the interview the other day. I was so mad. I'm like, bro, why are you skating around? Like, stop talking over the interviewee. Just like prompt and just fall back. You know what I mean? Because what the person was going to say, you keep cutting them off. I'm sorry. I was a little in my feelings on that interview. But let's continue. For those who've just joined us, welcome. We are on chapter 2. Let's order Chinese. I ain't eat Chinese in a minute. I grab a menu on the telephone. Afeni shrugs. She's not a big food person. She eats because she has to. I wonder how good food can taste with all she smokes anyway. I do love some things about New York. One is takeout delivery. I'm going to try not to miss too much about New York. I know every move I make in this apartment is my last. I move out in 5 days. I have to pack it all up, and part of my heart is broken. I love the wood, the bay window, the hand-painted tile on the backsplash of the stove, the Alvin Ailey posters of past city center concerts, the grand Steinway with chipped ivory keys that came with the apartment. I'll take the piano, I had told the past owner, even though I can't play very well. I knew that it belonged in this big room. I had the painter stain the wood, trim the mantle and bay windows to match the warm maple of the piano. The piano was at home in this apartment, as was everyone else who ever visited me. This apartment embraced people. It embraced Afeni and her family for sure. It amazed me that so many of them could fit so easily into the one room. Afeni's kids, Seth and Tupac, and Glow's kids, Jamala and Katari, the Granberries, sorry, get babies, and Zinga, Malik, Imani. There are so many of them, but I could tell they could all live in one room without stepping on each other's toes. Because they used to, and then they used to all live like a Tokyo sidewalk at rush hour. So many people in one little space, but never in each other's way. While I place the order, Afeni seems to have regained her peace. I wonder if she'll miss my apartment too. Scallion, dumplings, special fried rice, and General Tso's shrimp are on the way. I know Afeni and I are in for a night, a long night, probably talking until we fall asleep. I crack a window and light a black opium stick. I'm sorry, sweetness, Afeni says. These cigarettes bothering you? Yes, it's bothering me, and I'm just reading the story like, how many times you gonna smoke? That stuff stink, man. Stop smoking them cigarettes. I'm sorry, y'all. It's bothering me. How many times you gonna be lighting up? Anyway, no, not really. I just like this incense. A house should never smell housey to me. If it's not the scent of fried bacon, oh my merciful Father, and brewed coffee in the morning. Fried bacon, anyway, baked chicken and yams at night, it should smell of black opium, red clover, sage, or Gucci No. 3. I lightly spray my Gucci cologne on a few lit bulbs. They sizzle and then scent steams rising through the air. Where did you learn that little trick? Afeni is amused. My girlfriend Gina, she probably doesn't even remember doing it herself. We shared a dressing room when I was doing Beehive at the village gate. She used to spray the hot bulbs around the mirror to get rid of the dank, musty smell of the gate's basement. Out came the steam of Jovan musk. So every time I squirt my little bulb at my house, I think of Gina, just for a second. It is so funny to me. Of all the things we've done together, of all the memories we have, Broadway shows, jokes, lovers, parties, heartaches, spritzing my light bulb is one of the consistent things that has always reminded me of her. That is Gina's legacy, I laugh. It's a little thing, but a big thing, Afeni smiles. Yes, it's Yes, it's a visit. Memories are visits, I spritz. There's Gina, just said hi. The room is quiet. The scent diffuses and we close our eyes to Terrence Trent D'Arby's. We listen for a minute. Oh, this boy can sing. Afeni swoons. Have you heard him sing I Was Born by the River? Sam Cooks? Afeni asks. Afeni, I want her. He wears it out. Like, let me tell you, let me see if I can find it. I look through my CDs. Afeni gets excited when she introduced new things. She's a great person to introduce your passengers to, and I can imagine Tupac bringing her songs and Seth bringing her babies, and how happy they all must have been. She is a great receiver of art and love. Afeni, you have the soul of an artist, I say to her. How did that happen? How did that live in you when you had no exposure to art? I'm not saying your family didn't have it inside, but everyone worked so hard. How did it come out if it was in there to be expressed? How did you become so expressive? And Tupac? I don't know. I found out recently that my great-grandmother sang gospel from door to door. She spread the word through song. As for me, I could always talk. My problem was knowing when to shut up. Articulating my feelings was never a problem, but I don't believe artists are cultivated like corn or cotton. Artists are messages of God. They get here on earth and express themselves because of him. I don't know where that stuff comes from. It seems to come out of nothing sometimes. Like the rose that grew from concrete, I say, quoting Tupac. Like the rose that grew from concrete, Afeni nods, confirming the reference. The key is, and this is where we come in as parents, to guide the talent. Like for me, in my case, I never knew what to do with my thoughts and my mind, my mouth and my anger. I didn't have a place for it. Like your mother getting an education and not knowing what to do with it. Yeah. But I read everything. Reading works for me. Reading gave me dreams. Reading gave me weapons like Invictus. Invictus is a powerful poem for a child. And this is the Invictus quote here. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. Interesting. Afeni recites with the strength and inflection of Maya Angelou. She isn't loud, but her intensity grows as the words of Invictus come back to her. She is empowered again as she was as a child. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged the punishment scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. And Shakespeare, she says, which I was totally fond of. I read everything he wrote, not as an assignment. Couldn't have been an assignment. You were never in any school long enough to get an assignment. We cracked up. That was Jasmine Guy making jokes, right? Hold on. We crack up. Afeni shakes her head. I know that's right. In and out, in and out. I was a mess. But you loved Hamlet. Yeah, I loved Hamlet, Macbeth. I know all those parts. Puck in a Midsummer Night's Dream. I loved Puck. She sounds as if Puck were an old friend. That's funny. Tupac loved Shakespeare too. I thought he got his affinity from the Baltimore School of Arts, but he got it from you. I'm not too sure why that is odd to me. Maybe because Afeni's love of Shakespeare does not fit my preconception of her, the reading gangster. I continue, and you know Tupac, he was like, you don't like Shakespeare, with disdain and stuff. Afeni is laughing. Yes, I know, and arrogant and mad, like I disappointed him or something. How dare I call myself an actress and not be into Shakespeare? I found myself defending my takes. I read Shakespeare, but I don't have a passion for him. Afeni still laughing. I sorry. I don't like no Shakespeare, Mr. Pac. She starts to imitate me, groveling for Tupac's approval. So he seems to have been quite pushy with the conversation, okay? Not giving people space not to like Shakespeare. Like they don't like Shakespeare. I mean, you know what I mean? I join in. Look here. I love Langston Hughes and Toni Morrison, James Baldwin and August Wilson. No, not Toni Morrison. I read one the other day. I think it was the writer who wrote How Stella Got Her Groove Back. I could not get past. I'm like, okay, I understand writing in a certain vernacular, but I couldn't read the book. I couldn't read the book. It was like a no for me. But so again, You know, you like what you like, or you rock with what you rock with. Let me see here. Went off. Let me see. Please don't think I'm stupid. I was like, boy, give me a break. Everybody ain't got to like Shakespeare. We are both not laughing now. Oh, he probably just wanted someone to talk to about it. Afeni defends her only son. But see, you disappointed him. Afeni's laughter calms down. Yes, don't disappoint Tupac, I say soberly. We sit on that note for a while, reflecting the deep-seated disappointment Tupac held in his heart always. Both Afeni's children live life afloat a current of sadness. Interesting. So the mother is what did I say about anger and sadness? The mother was living life with anger, and the children internalize it, and they're living life with sadness. I wonder now if the sadness I see in Seth is grief, pain, or loneliness, just as I had wondered if Tupac's was longing, abandonment, or disappointment. This stuff is heavy. This stuff is heavy. Like Tupac, Seth can be sad in still and quiet moments. And like him, she loses the sadness in the flux and turmoil that surrounds her. Don't be quiet too long. The sadness may come up again. All right. We're almost at the end of, I'm stammering a little bit. Let me take a little swig of water here. We're almost at the end of chapter 2. A lot of background, but again, background is important. Why were you in and out of school so much? I figured it's time to get off Tupac and back to Afeni. She speaks to me as if I should already know the answer to my question. I quit or got kicked out of one school. I walked in the front door, heard Bobby Kennedy was killed, and walked out of the back door. I figured, what the blink? I had just had it when I left PA or performing arts. I was sort of asked to leave. I was given an ultimatum. PA, as in the New York School of Performing Arts, you were there? I can't believe Afeni went to PA. Not because Afeni couldn't have gone or shouldn't have gone. It's just that PA was always a dream of mine after I saw the movie Fame. Who remembers Fame? I want to live forever. Who remembers that? I'm sorry. Showing the age. I used to watch Fame. But why was they dancing around like that, though, in the leotards? Anyway, there were specialty programs that specific high schools offered, and I was being evaluated as to which school I should apply. My plan, what I wanted, was to apply to Hunter College High School for reasons unbeknownst to me. My counselor at the time suggested Bronx High School of Science and the High School for Performing Arts. Why? I don't know. What I do know is that I wasn't allowed to even take the test for Hunter College High School. My IQ was 2 points below requirement. I passed the test for Bronx Science, but I did not want to go there. Too many rich white kids. I believe at the time that actors and performers were like free spirits. I thought I could relate to them better than some snooty white kids, but ultimately it was the same stuff. I was in over my head, was way over my head. But PA is a public school. You have to audition to get in. It's not about money or tuition. Lots of brilliant, gifted people went to PA based on their own talent, not their money. A lot of kids that went to PA were coming out of private schools. They came to school in limos, and I hated them with a passion. I'd get high off of Thunderbird wine before school even started just to deal with the hatred of them. So now you went to drinking? Father, where is this child's mother? Now she is over here. I can't with you. She over there drinking Thunderbird, y'all. She says she'll get blinked up with her friends and then go to school and watch them rich kids, limos, pretty clothes, just showing off. And her son came with the same indifference towards the poverty that he was experiencing. And if you listen to some interviews, he would have this same sentiment, whether he heard it from his mother, whether he's seen it when he was growing up, this type of, conversation is very similar. It says, this is what my mind was telling me back then, that those kids were showing off. I'm glad she qualified it, that this is what your mind was telling you. But the worst part of the day was lunchtime. Lunchtime at Performing Arts was hell for me because they didn't have a cafeteria. No cafeteria in public school. I wonder about the hot lunch number in the movie Fame when the kids started dancing on the tables in the cafeteria. I tell you what movies can do, man. It leads you down the wrong path, okay? It says no cafeteria. Kids would leave and go to Times Square or Nedix or the Automat and buy their food. I didn't have money for lunch. My mother begged my bus fare off the neighbors just to get me down to the stinking place. Well, I said stinking, but she says, dang. Lunch money and leotards and whatever else was out of the question. So basically, it's not just attending the school. There were all these other things that she could not afford. And then therefore, she felt like she was in over her head, right? Are you kidding me? It was absurd to me, and I was trapped. I couldn't tell my mother we needed even more money to go to the school. I wouldn't tell my teachers blank either. So I just left. I'd just leave at lunchtime, go to school, do my drama and dance classes, and then leave at lunch. I missed all my academics. No one noticed you were gone? They noticed, and they tried to get me to do right. This one lady who used to teach Eartha Kitt when she was there tried to get me to stay at PA. She told me how Eartha would work making dresses in the evening and go to school all day. She told me Eartha had a lot of problems like I did. She said we're a lot alike, me and Eartha Kitt. Can you imagine? Afeni raises her brow, shakes her head, and chuckles. I couldn't see Afeni at a sewing machine all night or in a cat suit. Was Glenn Turner there at PA when you were there? Sorry, I asked. Yeah, Afeni is casual but smiles. He was my boyfriend. So your boyfriend, I laughed out loud. I know him. I work with Glenn on A Different World. He is a fine actor who worked with Sidney Poitier on Broadway at A Raisin in the Sun as a young boy. And he has been working ever since. Glenn Turner, yeah, Glenn Turner. Who remembers Glenn Turner? Glenn Turner was on Cooley High Harmony. Hold on. And he was, what was his name on Different World? What's his name on? He played a role. He was with Jaleesa. On A Different World. So she's saying that Glenn Turner was her boo. Hold on. They bringing me up the music group. No, not the music group, Cooley High Harmony. Glenn Turner, the actor. Now they bringing me liquor? I didn't know Glenn Turner was a liquor. Glenn Turner is a liquor brand? What, the box side? Hold on, peoples. Give my voice a break for a second. There he goes. Why do they keep... Oh, maybe because I'm spelling his name wrong. Let me see if she spelled his name right. So Afeni's over here saying Glenn is her boo thing. He was her boo back in school. So let's continue. There he goes. There he goes. Yeah, he wasn't Cochise. What was his name on Cooley High Harmony? So this would have been around the time that Glenn, or a little bit earlier, that she would have known Glenn. Hold on. Let's take a look at Glenn here. Do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. There he goes. There he goes. Aging well there, Glenny. Let's see here. He's 73. 1959 production. Still acting too. I thought I saw a Cooley High Harmony picture. Yeah, he used to be on A Different World. Okay, I don't see a Cooley High Harmony. There he goes. Remember him? So this is who she's saying was her boo. It would have been how he looked here, right? No hair on his face. So let's continue. In high school. So let's continue here. I had a little intermission. Hold on. Back to what we were doing here. All right, we're back. So she says, yeah, Afeni is casual but smiles. He was my boyfriend. Your boyfriend? I laughed out loud. I know him. I work with Glenn on A Different World. He is a fine actor who worked with Sidney Poitier on Broadway in A Raisin in the Sun as a young boy. And he has been working ever since. He's still working. Glenn's got 100 jobs. Sorry. I know you do, Afeni smiles. I like Glenn. Why didn't you stay with him? Glenn's best friend went out with my best friend, Sandra. I love Sandra dearly, but she was a little faster than me. So she'd hang out with Glenn's friend, making out and what have you. And Glenn and I would be BSing, talking, dreaming, hanging out. I really like Glenn. I was in love with him. Afeni, and this is the first time she's speaking affectionately about someone, which is also very interesting because, again, this is where the point of impact is as it relates to the standard that you're expecting. So she has a negative thought process coming from her father, her grandfather, great-grandfather. But Glenn is the first time you hear her say that she's open to receiving this love, right? Which is interesting. So Afeni and Glenn, she says, I was in love with him. Afeni and Glenn, such a pretty couple in my mind, but I know some stuff must have gone down. What happened to y'all? All young and in love, I wonder. Break it down to me gently. He liked big women, Afeni says, as if she agrees with his bias. Big women like Ma Rainey, she smiles. And he married Una. She went to PA too. He should have married Una. Did y'all break up or what? I need more details. So she says, he slapped me, Afeni says. Glenn? I'm appalled. For something I said, she adds pointedly. I told you I had a mouth. But remember, her whole thing about fighting dudes and beating up people so that they don't beat up you. But so it's interesting that she's here like he slapped you, but she doesn't say that she beat him up. You know what I mean? So for something I said, she adds pointedly, I told you I had a mouth. I know, but still. And I challenged him, talking about, I bet you won't slap me again. And guess what? She looked at me. What? He slapped me again, she says, and I gasped, slapped the fire out of me. I saw stars, and there's my lesson. So she got a lesson from Glenn slapping her, but she was over there beating and jumping on, attacking people that she didn't like or she thought was coming for her. And I'm confused at this whole who you choose to slap. Like, you learn a lesson here, but you did. Okay. Don't tell someone to slap you because they may do it. I look at the differences. Glenn lived in Greenwich Village, and I didn't have no ninjas that lived in the village. And by the time he was at PA, he had already done TV, Penton Place, and A Raisin in the Sun. So in my heart, I didn't feel I was on his level. Oh, so that's why she let him slap her, because she wasn't on his level? After he hit me, shoot, I was going to kill him. Oh, okay. I came to school the next day ready to fight. That's what I'm like. Where's the fight? I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to fight, but I'm wondering what a fight was. Okay. She came to school the next day ready to fight because that's what I knew to do. I was ready to throw down. So what happened? Why didn't you throw down the day he slapped you? Why you went home to think about it? Well, I'm glad you didn't. I say, I like Glenn. He's a good man. You see not the contradiction, but the struggle comes now. She's looking at present day Glenn. This is Jasmine Guy, right? And she's glad that Afeni didn't fight Glenn, even though Glenn slapped her, because in present day, he's a good man. Yeah, he's a good man who slapped the snot out of a little girl or a young girl. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what you do when you may know somebody and people around may know, but they're also being abused. And the person doesn't want to step in because, quote, the other person is a good person. Mm-hmm. She says, I like him too, Afeni laughs. He didn't beat me. So now you're making a differentiation between beating and slapping. No, he ain't really, his fist wasn't closed. It was open. You know, he didn't beat me. He just slapped me. So again, this is what we the people do. And I'm glad we're able to just look at it for what it is. Where am I? I probably deserved it anyway, rationalization. Now, because he had been on TV and he had some type of status, then that gave him a red light, a green light to slap you. And then you made yourself being deserving of the slap. And that's who I was. That's what I did. She said, I was 16 and that's who I was. That's what I did. Fight. Just confusion right there. Dang, I say laughing. That wasn't laughing matter. Dude slapped her. I can't imagine him slapping you. Well, maybe I can. One day, yo, Jasmine is on one, son. Did she say she could imagine Glenn slapping her after she just... Okay. One day, months later, I ran into Glenn in LA at a cafe on Larchmont. He smiled when I mentioned Afeni's name to him. You know, I only know her as Alice Faye. So, okay, Jasmine Guy is confirming that, yes, it's true of the situation. He told me it was years before I found out that Tupac was even her son. His smile broadens as he remembers his friend. That was my girl, he says. She was so smart and so talented, but she was always talking about leaving performing arts and that they'd kick her out. Eventually they did, but she could have stayed. She just felt like she didn't fit in. So this is Glenn remembering. And again, sometimes our mouths can be our own undoing, just like her son. You keep saying and repeating that which you don't want instead of putting the energy and time into what you do want, right? I waited for Glenn to mention the slap, but he never did. Mentioning it to him would break his perspective. And I was amused to hear, you should have asked him about the box. Be like, yo, Glenn, your box, sir? So come on, Jasmine, come on. And I was amused to hear how different Glenn and Afeni's recollection was of the same relationship. He never mentioned slapping her, just how he loved her fire. All Afeni remembered is that her fire got her slapped. I was too ashamed to really try in that school. I was too ashamed of myself, Afeni tells me. I didn't think I belonged there, and I didn't know how I got there. Bro, you took the test, remember? You didn't want to go to the Bronx Science. You took the test, and then you went there. Maybe GOD put you there to give you a ticket out, I suggested. Possibly. If you had, it's all about perspective. Now you have the opportunity, but because you don't feel confident enough, you talk yourself out of it, right? Afeni shrugs her shoulders slightly, not completely, dismissing my suggestion. Was your mother disappointed when you left performing arts, I asked? Afeni is quiet for a moment as her mother comes to her mind. I see the memory wash over her face. Regret comes into her voice for the first time. I didn't do nothing but disappoint my mother, Jasmine. I broke her heart over and over again. Rosa Bell Williams. And that's the end of chapter 2. So Rosa Bell has a name. She's reflecting on how she wasn't the best daughter. And how she went down the wrong path. It seems at that time she couldn't even get a handle on herself. But we do see certain patterns that are going to be repeated in her son's life because he comes into that space of where she left off, right? Similar to what happens to him when he goes to Baltimore performing arts. He starts walking right into her same footsteps, right? She doesn't end up dying in the way that he does, but she often feared for her life before he was born, after he was born, while he was growing up. And this may have been in addition to what his father said many videos ago that I shared about the death that happened in the father's side. I think that this was a culmination of a lot of things. And while you're living it, you don't have the, what's the word I'm looking for? You don't have the luxury of what she's doing now, which is reflecting, because you're in the heat of it, right? A lot of this reflection comes later because this is many years after things have transpired. But while you're in the thick of it, it sounds easy, but all of the other emotions and feelings are firing and wiring, and you're unable to come to terms with the fact that you're spiraling out of control, right? So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts in the description or in the box below. Let me know if you're enjoying this. Oftentimes I read these stories and I'm like, when I'm long done finished reading, everybody's like, come back, Amuna. I'm like, bro, that was like 5 years ago. So y'all have to talk back to me now. Talk back to me. And then we'll come back and read part 3 of this whole evolution of a revolutionary. So with that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll talk again soon. 1.